Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from YellowCat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Huge work mistake. Forgot an airline crew in a McDonald's in Portugal for 5 days. What's your biggest work-related mistake? In 1998, I was an airline duty manager in the Operation Control Center. I was like the Maytag repairman. I only worked when there were problems. My job description was to save the operation, meaning find solutions where there aren't any. In September of that year, Air Canada crews went on strike, so my airline sublet 2 aircrafts with full crews to operate Air Canada flights. That's minus 2 aircrafts for my fleet. On September 2nd, Swiss Air 111 went down off the coast of Peggy's Cove, a terrible tragedy. Less than 8 hours later, one of our flights en route to London did an emergency landing in Halifax because there was smoke in the cockpit. Same thing that had happened to SR-111, except ours was a different aircraft type and only a minor technical problem. Because of all the media attention, the aircraft had to be grounded for over 36 hours to make sure everything was alright. That's a total of 3 aircrafts that I can't use. From that point on, we went into full crisis management. My phones were constantly ringing, and I had to solve each and every single problem. When crises like that occur, we're bound to forget certain things. For operational purposes, the crew that was supposed to fly the aircraft back from London to Toronto was sent to Lisbon to fly deadhead on to Toronto. Only, the Lisbon flight was subsequently cancelled, and it was the Lisbon World Fair. There wasn't a single hotel room in the whole city and around. The crew purser, kept calling me asking me what to do. I kept telling her that I was trying to find a solution. To this day, I can still hear her sweet little voice. Berg, it's M. We're stuck in our uniforms sleeping on the floor of a McDonald's. I'm a bridesmaid Saturday. I have to get back. Please, Berg, I have to get back. I was so busy, this one got by me. The crew came back the following Wednesday and she missed the wedding. I still feel extremely bad about it, especially because she was so nice about it. She never freaked out and she kept her crew calm and they just waited. What's the worst mistake you've ever made? Right after 9/11 happened, I had to go from Chicago to our New York City data center. We're a stock exchange/broker and this data center was 2 blocks from ground zero. There was talk that NASDAQ wouldn't be up and we would have to take over orders for them interim. While we had 6,000 servers in Chicago, we really needed to get our 4,500 in New York City up too. So we're hustling and taking shortcuts when we could try to get things up and running. Cooling tower drained, cleaned, refilled, a big A semi-trailer sized generator dropped off, begin to fire everything up. We're looking good. Now it's time to start the backup system / power smoothing and switch from mains to it. Now, this power smoothing system was an ancient beast we inherited from the previous owners, which was a big iron mainframe setup from the 60s. Now, it smoothed power by using a flywheel. I don't know how it all worked, and it has never needed to be restarted before, so this was all new to me, a young 24-year-old sysadmin. The flywheel was a 10-foot high solid concrete wheel that weighed 4 tons. It spun at 500 RPMs. To start it, you took off an access door, applied power to the system, and gave it a little nudge. There was an arrow and chalk pointing one way, so I nudged it in that direction and it began spinning up. After 2 hours, when it was fully up to speed, you took a timing light and shined it at it to make sure it was going the right way. Yes, the system could run in either direction. So all looks well, so I grabbed this huge lever that looks like it's right out of a Shelley novel and slowly push it from bypass to active. As soon as the lever went past the T in active, we heard a dozen large booms and then a bunch of smaller booms. Complete darkness. Apparently, at some point in time, the wheel needed maintenance, and when they were done, they put it on backwards. So the arrow was pointing in the wrong direction. So instead of positive voltage, I was sending thousands of volts of negative voltage to all of the PDUs and the battery racks. As you can imagine, they don't expect that kind of thing. The big booms were the $50,000 power distribution units exploding. The smaller ones were all of the control circuitry for the UPS. And that's not even the worst bit. So all these booms happen. then it stayed quiet. We managed to destroy this semi-trailer sized rental generator, but remember how I said it was a 4-ton flywheel? And it took 2 hours to come up to speed? It took roughly that long for it to spin down as well. And I didn't flip the lever back to bypass, so this system is still pumping voltage. 6 fires later. It cost the company close to $2.5 million to get the system working again, and it took over 3 weeks of around-the-clock work. We're talking replacing everything. The PDUs, the switching system, even the wires down to the street. Didn't get fired though. I missed that place. Throwaway for obvious reasons. I was working on one of those TV shows where you do stupid things in public and film people's reactions. In the skit we were doing, a man would be jogging with a stroller containing a lifelike baby doll, and I was gonna hit him with a car. The jogger was wearing bright green. They dress funny on these shows so that you don't mix up the cast with pedestrians. So I'm cruising up to the stop sign in a beat-up old Ford. My adrenaline is really pumping. This was my first time actually being involved in a skit. I see the bright green jumpsuit, and I gun it. I hit the wrong guy. It was just some dude jogging with his kid. I realized what happened when the guy I hit didn't jump onto the hood the way you're supposed to in these stunts. I honestly don't remember anything about the incident after that. I was in shock. The dad had a few broken bones, the baby was fine. Needless to say, there was a huge settlement paid out. I'm currently pursuing an unrelated career. Firefighter, paramedic / nurse here. I'm gonna list a few. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I've been doing this for 12 years, fire / medic 10, nurse 3, in no particular order. Dropped a newborn baby. What it sounds like really. As soon as the sucker popped out, she was quite slippery and fell out of my hands right onto an ambulance floor as I was handing her to my partner. In the end, it was okay, but the mother almost literally murdered me. Understandably, of course. Kicked a cardiac monitor / defibrillator into a pool during a cardiac arrest. The patient was pulled from a pool, and as equipment was getting shuffled around, the monitor got moved. I inadvertently kicked it, and it ended up at the bottom of a pool. They cost about $20K each. Luckily, there was another one there. Destroyed a garage door by driving a ladder truck through it while it was closing. I was backing up, my spotter wasn't paying attention, someone closed the garage door, and it was destroyed. Set fire to a fire engine. Way too long of a story to type out, but as the officer in charge when this happened, it's my fault even though I wasn't the operator of the engine. But the operator parked much too close to a fire and the engine ended up on fire, although it sounds worse than it is. So, with regards to the engine story, I was the acting officer that day, meaning the regular captain on our engine was out sick. Our engine got placed in a back alley adjacent to a structure which was on fire. The operator / driver had just been cleared. My mistake was not realizing this because this wasn't my regular station, and while I had worked with the crew before, didn't know it was literally this kid's first day clearing to drive / pump, and his placement put the engine very close to said burning structure, albeit far from the fire if that makes sense. The cab windows were down, one thing led to another, and half of the interior of the cab was on fire. Luckily, we took care of it fairly quickly. I chalk it up to not getting in early enough. Usually I would get into work an hour before the shift, but I got in right at shift change and got a hurried report and ended up missing out on that information. Keep in mind, these incidents have happened over quite a few years. It's not like all this happens at once. Also, I work in a civil service system. I'm not gloating by any means, but this makes it difficult to fire someone for bad luck. Although, incident number 4 still bugs me to this day because it could have ended up much worse if it were a different situation. Another story. Disclaimer, this happened to my brother. A fat lady pinned him to the floor on the ambulance that was taking him a few blocks. So, this firefighter / medical brother, Dan, is generally a nice guy but can be a bit of an a-hole. Dan insisted, until it happened of course, that not using all the seatbelts on the beds was okay. He was fined several times, but nothing changed his attitude. Then one day, we were directed to the whale, the fat guy who fell down. When I say fat man, I mean this particular fat man. So this poor lady has fallen and needs to be seen at the hospital. 10 of us put her on a special sheet they make, carry her to the ambulance, pack her up, and send her to the hospital, with Dan, of course, insisting that 2 straps is okay, not 5. When we get back to the house, we hear the dispatcher anxiously trying to contact her radio. Every firefighter is assigned a radio, and every radio has a little link button on it, pressing which lets the dispatcher know that something is wrong, like a junkie has trapped you, or you're trapped in a burning building, dying, too weak to talk. 2389, are you okay? 2309, are you okay? At which point, she turns on the emergency light and asks 2389, are you okay again? So almost everyone and their grandmothers know something bad has happened. After turning on the signal, we hear the driver take the radio, yell, "Dispatch Medic 19, we need help at XY intersection," and nothing after that. The driver can't see what's going on behind him, so until he hears the signal, he didn't know anything was wrong. At this point, the supervisor, the deputy supervisor, and the supervisor on duty from headquarters, as well as the other 2 cars that came to help us, and of course us, are on the radio. We think the worst, drive up, and see that the 2 policemen who were beating us have turned red, and we hear swearing and shouting. At this point, I knew it was going to be okay because I recognized that voice. I walked to the back of the ambulance, and this is what I saw. A pair of blue uniform pants and boots covering a very large woman. What happened was that the driver swerved, the patient's weight snapped the straps as Dan knelt, and he found himself pinned to the floor. Unfortunately for him, the motion caused the huge woman to fall on top of him. He was only able to reach his emergency call button, which in retrospect is a good thing for him because otherwise he would have been found like that in the ambulance dock. But the moral of the story is clear. Use all your seatbelts. The reactive supervisor decided that being covered by a fat lady for a few blocks was punishment enough. Now he uses all seatbelts. Fortunately, the woman didn't sue, although I think that's because Dan had taken care of her before, and although he's a bit of an a-hole, he always made sure she was treated well. Accidentally deleted the email accounts for my entire organization. Stopped the command once I realized what happened, but by that time, it had wiped out 3/4 of the mailboxes, including both of the owners' accounts. That was a dark day. I'll always be careful with RMRF from now on though. To clarify, I was just in the wrong directory when I ran the command. I was trying to empty one user's mailbox, but I was one directory higher than I thought I was, so I ended up deleting all of the mailbox folders instead. Okay, I've come out of the depths of lurkdom to post this. Here goes. I used to work for a TV company that makes a lot of high-profile shows, including one of the most popular shows on British TV, which is also broadcast around the world. Our client had gone out on location and shot all of their footage for an episode of this show and brought it back to my work, only for me then to lose their tapes. The show goes out on a Wednesday night, and it got to the Sunday beforehand, and we still couldn't locate 5 of their tapes of footage because I had put them somewhere and not in the location I logged them into on our system. Everybody chipped in to help look for these tapes, staying behind and pulling 16-hour shifts to search for them, but when push came to shove, we couldn't find them and my company had to pay for the client to reshoot their footage. Not the end of the world, right? Wrong. It turns out the footage on the tapes I had misplaced had been shot from a GD helicopter. So my company had to fork out £18,000 for the camera rentals, the crew, and the hire for a D chopper. And the real kicker is that as soon as they had shot it again, the original tapes turned up. F my life. Thank you for watching. Guys, thank you for all of the support and the likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.